Welcome. I'm Brian Chang. I'm with the Pivotal Vanguards. So what are we in, day 2 of this conference? I'm sure you've all been at some pretty great sessions thus far, learned some good stuff. Now you're going to hear the truth. Okay? So I'll be real quick and tell you a little bit about the Vanguards. I'll have our panelists introduce themselves, and then we are going to go into the Customer Pivotal Platform Deep Dive Expedition Pearls of Wisdom. Now, why did we call it that? What I have here is a panel of our most vocal, opinionated advocates that Pivotal could come up with that were willing to come to the show. So, and what is the Pivotal Vanguard? We are a super user customer advocacy community that Pivotal we're going to be officially announcing tomorrow at the keynote, so listen in for that. But essentially, Pivotal realized that we have some really passionate vocal customers, so why not put them in a community where they could share best practices, pain points, learn from one another, and grow as a community. So we launched in early June. We currently have 50 members. These are the best of the best, so you got the best. Now, the only criteria I ever ask of any of them is share your opinions, don't hold back, give us the hard, straight truth, like it or not. So that's what they're gonna do today. I have no control over what they're gonna say, okay? It could be good, it could be bad. I may be looking for a job next week, I don't know. But it's gonna be damn interesting. I promise that, okay? So with that, I wanna introduce Chris Noyes, who's my co-moderator today. He's gonna be walking around. This is interactive. If y'all have questions, don't be shy about asking, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is let them introduce themselves, starting with Jay. Go ahead.
Quite the build. Is this thing on? Oh yeah, there we go. It's quite the build-up. Thank you, Brian. My name is Jay Piskorik. I'm Director of Platform Engineering at Dick's Sporting Goods. We have a sliding scale of how long we've actually been doing this. If you heard main stage last year, my boss said like a year when we'd only been doing it for like 4 months. So the real number, I believe, is about 16 months at this point. We've seen a lot of good things by really opening up the culture at our company and letting the engineers drive a lot of great things for us. Some things you'll see on the main stage tomorrow as well.
Cool. Jürgen.
Hi, my name is Jürgen Sussner. I'm from DateV Germany, a German company for tax consultants, auditors, and lawyers. And we do tax processing for German tax consultants, and we operate a private on-prem Cloud Foundry-based cloud platform in our own data center for from starting POC 2.5 years. And we have quite a good adoption in developers and our own developers. And that's what we are at the journey at the moment. And we're building up our own cloud platform team. And that's what I'm for. I'm one of the cloud platform engineers at DateV Cloud Platform team.
Hello, everybody. My name is Neville. I work for Comcast. I lead the platform teams at Comcast. And before all of you ask, I cannot help you with your bills. Right. We've been on this journey for about like 5 to 6 years. About 22 different sites and about 50,000 AIs. So really big. And over the years, we've learned a lot of stuff. So happy to share.
Hey, Dennis Canty, so Vice President for Developer Services and the Technology Labs at McKesson, a Fortune 7 company in the healthcare space. So essentially what my groups globally are responsible for is everything that the developer experience needs. Think like platforms like Pivotal, even API technologies, DevOps, automated DevOps for the enterprise, training, community, design. So it's been good fun over the last couple of years. We're a couple of years into this as well. We've about 25 teams running on Pivotal Cloud Foundry right now globally.
I am Kevin Ingolson from Liberty Mutual. At my heart and soul, I am a data geek. I have been a developer. I'm an engineer. I'm a data modeler. Since from the conversations apparently around 2015 or so, I've been playing platform operator as the day job. Still currently doing that. Doing my darndest to replace myself with a computer so I can go off and do other tasks and talk with other stuff like these folks.
I'm Channing Jackson. I'm an architect with Charles Schwab, leading the bank technology team there for about the last 3 years on our modernization journey.
And I'm Carrie Schaefer. I'm from a company named OneMagnify. We're at our headquarters in Detroit. We actually do marketing technology and analytics for Fortune 500 companies. We have 6 global offices. I think that's, and we've actually started our platform journey about 6 months ago. We've already got 5 applications in production.
Cool. Let's just jump right into it, okay? So Jay, I'm going to ask you first. The move to Pivotal Platform potentially advocates for a major cultural change, even all the way to the core of the company. These can be hard sells when you're first starting out with Pivotal Platform or even getting it into the front door. What type of cultural changes did you experience, and how did you propagate and nurture that at Dix?
It's an interesting question when it comes to the cultural change that you're going to go through when you're doing something like Pivotal, because the platform is the software, but to really be successful, you have to change to the core, basically. And that's going to create a lot of unrest within the people that work with you. Some of the administrators don't really have the same position moving forward. You get away from the idea that you're going to be pushing levers all the time to where you're actually going to own what you do day to day. It's kind of like that inverse where you're always getting someone else's software coming in to where now you're pushing it out to your customers and you're the core of this. So the one thing you really have to take into perspective is, what is this going to do to the workforce and your people? Because it's a hard shift. I can tell you early on, I see my friend Tony's in the back. He was my therapist through the first couple months of this because we weren't a very well-liked team. There were 6 people picked throughout our company and tasked with building out the platform for a group of 40-some product teams that we had. This shifted from Dick's Sporting Goods' core of, we're going to build a bunch of data centers to constantly protect ourselves, to we're going to build a couple foundations that can pop up and down whenever we need them, and we're not going to worry about buying software anymore. We're not going to worry about buying a ton of hardware. The one little thing I always like to say is, like, some of the big brands aren't going to drive their truck of licenses to us and then take a truck of our money away and go the other direction. We're going to actually manage this a lot closer. And the core of this, it's not actually the software. If you take a look at Pivotal and look at their services and the way they treat each other just within, and then when they parachute on to help with standing this up, they teach you a lot of things about how to treat each other and how to work together. So that's always been kind of like the most important thing to me when working with Pivotal, was not just the platform. It's the actual like way of life and the way of doing things, and kind of making sure that you're taking into account all of the things that you're displacing, because those people need to have a place as well. You don't want to just put people out on the street. And I think the Home Depot does a great job of kind of like putting people through training and getting them up to speed. So I hope at Dick's Sporting Goods, that'll be the next thing we kind of tackle.
Okay. Question? No. All right. Jumping to Jürgen. Diving deeper into a specific vertical of cultural change, let's talk about the mindset change and the relationship between development and DevOps. Describe the types of mindset changes you try to promote in the developer and ops organizations, or they may even be in a single organization.
Yeah, interesting topic, because as a company that's more than 50 years old, we are really a divided company between dev and ops. There was this dev guy, there was this ops stack, even till C-level management. And the developers are used to, we develop an application, throw it over the wall, some ops guy will operate that application and it runs fine. And I have been one of the developers, I have been one of the ops guys. And I have been the guy who wakes up in the middle of the night trying to fix an application I haven't written myself, I don't know myself. And that's what we figured out didn't work quite well with the platform. Believe me, we tried it and it didn't work well. We tried to apply all these changes, all these separation to the platform, and we did not fail, but it didn't work good. And we thought about, when we really think about all these things, why do we need that separation? Do we actually need it? And if you think about that model, you build it, you run it, you empower your development team to let them run their application in a production environment. And we do so. But that demands a huge amount of trust to the developers, And you have to empower the developers because you have to take away their fears. Like, what should I do if I run it in production? What do I have to do? Do I have to decipher a TCP dump, for example? Or no, you don't. You simply have to push the buttons like you do it in your dev environment as well. And the other way around, looking at the ops persons are used to have their machines on their own. They are their machine. They know every switch and every register they have. And they have to learn about, I want to have developers on my machine. They operate their stuff. I only provide the platform. I trust the developers. They should do whatever they want to do, and they know more about the application than I do. And so these things change. The developers starting to trust in the platform and the automation of the platform and rely on that platform contract, I would say, to operate their applications in production. And the other way around, the ops guys started to think of themselves as providing a platform and not of operating a application. So we as ops nowadays provide a platform and let developers operate their application on the platform. That's what changed in the classical hierarchy of the company. And it's even thus far that we reorganize the company at the moment to a model that it's not that does not have that differentiation between dev and ops anymore. It is a reorganization, even at C-level management, to change the whole company to a model that supports better these style of you build it, you run it, this style of we call it a product team, a team that is responsible for an application and that can take ownership of this application.
I guess a question from me. I'm Jay. Did you have you guys started to look at the RE model, basically the reliability engineer? So I know a lot of people who were in that old operations kind of situation. They've transitioned from being an operator who just waits for something bad to happen to them to actually go out there and be part of the group, especially with the platform.
What we learned in that journey is that talking to developers, understanding their needs is essential. You have to talk a lot. I used to say I'm a techie guy, but most of the time when I'm at the company, I spend talking to developers, understanding their needs. And we are in the process of adopting some of the site reliability engineering methodologies to get to know about. But basically, we want to understand the needs of our developer, and we want to create a compliant environment where the development, the operation of an application is as easy as possible, regards to all the security compliance we have at the company. Thanks.
Good question. So as a follow-up, were your ops teams trained before administering the platform? Did the separation between dev and ops start out that way immediately, or did it evolve?
It simply evolved organically in that case. As I said, we tried that separation and it didn't work at our company. It didn't work quite well. So we rethought about all this, and it evolved to this organic model where we have a different kind of separation. You as an ops team, as a platform team, we operate a platform. We create a contract and the developer can rely on that contract and every application team can rely on that contract. And it's a different kind of separation. What I want to always say is if a new developer came to our company, he should be able to operate an application in production the first day he's at the company.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to achieve.
Cool. Neville?
All right.
Continuing on our cultural thread, one could argue that Pivotal Platform is more about developer experience than any other value prop. How do you feel Pivotal Platform betters or enhances the developer experience?
Well, Brian, how long do we have? Right?
As long as you want.
Well, absolutely. There's no doubt about it, right? Like, the biggest benefit of a platform like, Pivotal or, say Cloud Foundry in general is that, a developer can just push your application and not worry about, like, is it on private cloud or public cloud, right? Throughout the course of, the last few days, you've all heard, the CF login, CF push kind of experience, right? And, like, leave my CF push alone, whatever, right? When we talk to all of our customers, one of the most common questions that we hear from them are, hey, should I go to public cloud because, it's the in thing and everybody's going there and things are easy, right? And I think for us as a platform team, it's really important to articulate, what are the benefits of a platform as opposed to just lifting and shifting, all your pains from, private cloud to public cloud. And absolutely, are there use cases that fit the need? Absolutely. Like we should also not forget about, what we call the superhero teams. Like my boss, Greg, likes to call them like the Avengers team, right? Like they write all the Terraform scripts, Ansible scripts, love, automating all their patching, all of that stuff. But for, a majority of the people who are part of the non-Avenger teams, they just don't want to do it, right? It's not, part of their DNA. If you look at the textbook definition of what a developer is, it's somebody who develops something, right? Managing infrastructure, patching systems is not part of the description. How many of you here are developers? Show of hands, right? Now the question is, how many of you love, managing infrastructure and patching all your systems? All right. Well, so all the people who raise their hands, a lot of Avengers, right? But for the rest of us, when I push an application into Cloud Foundry, I automatically get a URL with SSL. I get local load balancing. I get auto scaling. I don't have to worry about patching, right? And that's like the beauty of a platform. I think the other very important piece of the platform is the marketplace. The fact that you can kind of have the same kind of experience as like CF Create service and CF Bind services, where again, as a platform team, I might provide you certain services, but if you're part of like an enterprise, organization that has, like say database as a service, you can enable them to have their services in your marketplace. Public cloud providers are writing service brokers to provide their their services, via the marketplace, so that developers don't have to choose, hey, should I be doing this here or should I be doing that there? It's just easy. And the more, I think about this, I think the developer experience is kind of like the cake, right? And the marketplace is like the icing, right? And as a developer, right, you can have your cake and you can actually eat it too.
Nice. All right, Dennis. Although the developer experience is a key value prop for Pivotal platform users, it can quickly morph into a landscape of variance within an organization. What has been your experience with mitigating the developer experience sprawl?
So in McKesson, I suppose it was about 2 years ago, Paul Black, Andy Zitney brought me in, and they were like, the first question I asked is like, where are all the devs? Like McKesson is across 16 countries, lots of siloed IT in the past, and that means siloed developers. So essentially what we tried to do is a kind of a developer first mindset in terms of leadership. And one of the things we saw is that like normally what was happening was there was a whole bunch of partners and technologies, and it was kind of pushed back towards the developers and be like, hey, use this, etc. So what we wanted to shift away from that and move to like start with the developers. So what we did was we profiled the entire landscape, found 35 dev teams, lots of funny conversations with folks like in Europe when they were saying, we don't have developers in Europe. And I'm like, there's developers in Denmark, sitting in Porto, looking at the water. I started to find more and more. And we've created a kind of a broader community, McKesson around McKesson Labs. And then what we've done is created sub-communities around the languages. So we profiled the enterprise. It was a majority Java, .NET. There was a couple of other kind of languages as well, but they were the majority. So we actually created communities. We brought the devs together and got them to help us build and firstly design and have like the first 8 weeks was like fighting. It was good fun though. And we created standardized Java, .NET, DevOps platforms for the developer community. And they help us evolve that as well over time. For us, one of the big things we're trying to do is look for optimizations. And we actually profiled in McKesson because of security, network identity, the various DevOps solutions. There was so much variety and sprawl in terms of even who you had to talk to get to a fully enterprise grade and more importantly, secure DevOps experience for a developer. And we were seeing like we could avoid cost of up to $350,000 per team and $1.1 million per annum in operating costs for a huge amount of complexity that was on cloud. So when we went through that, we started getting single visibility from a security perspective, which obviously is one of the biggest, motivating factors for what we're trying to achieve. And it, like just what Neville mentioned there as well is, well, what we're trying to do is like DevOps itself. We're trying to evolve that to what we're calling DevX, where devs like leverage automation and get security and ops out of the box. They focus on delivering value to the business and work closer with the customer experience teams. So it's moving away from this like always having infrastructure as part of your day job, and it's protecting their career. So we've extensive training programs around that as well. So we're looking to do more standardization, and I get it, right? There are the Avengers that sort of don't like us, but there's a lot of developers that kind of need that help as well. What was I said earlier in the panel? So it's been a very interesting journey from a learnings perspective as well, because we've started to see mindset shifts within the various areas globally as well. So that's pretty much it.
Cool. So let me ask as a follow-up. Did you force them to use tools like Concourse, or did you give them flexibility for them to choose their own?
So the way we've done it is like we really treat the developer community like a network market. It's a series of producers and consumers of content, and there's transactions and there's value. So the one thing for us was we have, because we had so many workloads on PCF, Concourse was there, it was being leveraged by a lot of the teams. So when we started off with the various communities around Java, .NET, the devs actually decided that. But what we've done is we've created enough abstraction and automation in the DevOps stacks themselves to be able to move if we need to. And the idea is that it's not a force model, it's very much, we start with the developers so you don't have to force.
Gotcha.
When you've been working with such a geographically diverse group of developers, what have you found has been the most effective communication channel for those developers, both within the development teams and disseminating information from your organization to the development teams? Yeah,
great question. So from a geographical perspective, we sort of do a lot of, like, I've hired a design team as well, a UX design team as part of developer services. And the reason for that is we want to have that design thinking up front. And I've also hired a communications person to be more proactive in terms of how we do that kind of community and drive the engagement model. So like we use Microsoft Teams and Slack, and we create like channels. But the key thing for us is everything is metrics. So we measure through analytic services who's using what and is it effective. We do in-region kind of developer community calls weekly. We tried to do it globally, but trying to get, like, we had folks in Germany and folks in like the Bay Area and Phoenix and stuff. So we started kind of creating like in-region developer communities and workshops and things like that. And then we do global channels around the key areas. So it's all about starting at the developer and the community, and then you have like a channel for a specific community in .NET, for example. But like we have Secure by Design community as well. And if they're not working, we kill them. If it's not active. But one of the big shifts we did as well is we established evangelists within the business to actually drive the channels themselves. So we had accountable people, because it's hard for like me and a couple of others just to drive all of this. So the key thing is to try and get the accountability down into the devs. And I don't care if they're principals or graduates, they all have a role to play from a developer leadership perspective.
Right.
And I'd like to just add, right? So as much as you're talking about like how do you change the complexion of like, like what you do, like when we started off, we were probably, a lot of infrastructure people on, our platform's team, right? And over a period of time, as you start growing, over 4, 5, 6 years and you become really big, you find that you're spending, a lot more time with the developers. And, so now our hiring strategy is more, let's hire developers because, if you're spending 80% of your time with the developers, you want somebody who can speak the same kind of language instead of just hiring an infrastructure person, and again, not that is not there, it's just a lot more easy, to do that transition.
I just want to totally agree. Our own complete platform team always consists of persons who have developer skills, and it's necessary to understand the language of your customers, of your developers, to understand their needs. That's why all our platform team is built of developers.
Good. Kevin, so Pivotal Platform is not all roses. We've all had our various struggles. Could you share some of your specific pain points and resolutions you've had with Pivotal Platform? And get as technical as you want.
Absolutely. So a couple disclaimers at the beginning. I've been at this since 2015. We have had an incredible partnership with our account representation team. I will say things to them directly that I wouldn't repeat in public, quite honestly. Simply not because I wouldn't say them in public, but there's cultural norms and other things in the way I express myself. Probably not necessarily publicly appropriate. So if I pause dramatically, it just means I'm trying to figure out how to go with that same content, but bring it here. Similar to what's here, our team too, all of us on our team, we are developers heart and soul, which gives us, I think, a fairly unique perspective in comparison to some other teams because that's how we go about doing it. Again, we've been at this since 2015, and actually kind of the spirit, there's been a lot of pain points, but the other goofy part is I have a team, we're right now a total of 8 individuals. It's the way you want to build a team. Any given one of us, it would suck to lose them because we are all so good, we're all independent, and that's the way you want to build a team. So I want everyone on the team, so I could lose them at the same time, but at the same time, with the broad shoulders, because we're all developers. We hop in on stuff. Like some of the content calls that were described, we help these application teams with their applications. We are helping individuals that weren't even necessarily tasked, don't even necessarily have access to the source code, but the reason we're on the call with them is we have a business problem. But anyway, so roll back the time. So one of the earlier problems that basically was able to work through with the team, so roll back, I don't know if it was 2015, 2016, we're rolling through the various upgrades. So we've got these developers that are learning to be platform operators, and we were struggling with our size. The automation that exists in the place, we built automation for how we manage our platforms. This is before, I don't remember what the predecessor is, this is before whatever contains the current automation products. We've been watching those. So keep in mind, this is the time where the team is still operating manually. We took the risk choice and said, we can't operate serially anymore. We are just too large. We need to run our environments in parallel. We were rolling an upgrade to I don't remember what to I don't remember what through our environments. I forgot to. I work for an insurance company that's over 100 years old. Some of our systems are established. They're solid. They run on some really awesome old 88, 8086 hardware. They're great. So anyway, part of what comes out with many you're probably familiar with, we have pretty strong networking controls. We learned all of a sudden as we're rolling upgrades. So at this point in time, I've got I think 2 non-prod upgrades running as well as a production upgrade that's rolling through. Phone starts ringing off the hook. Essentially, what I've effectively done is shut down every app, essentially, in our 2 largest non-prod environments because not a single app will start, and they can't get out across the frickin' network to talk what they need to talk to. So anyone that actually knows the low-level details, I'll just get into it because I'm the tech guy. If I try to genericize it, it'll be harder to describe. If you're familiar with ASGs inside of the platform, they're actually implemented with IP tables. And the implementation of how those IP tables were actually spun up and generated for each of the applications was a touch inefficient. At the time, Pivotal got stuck. I don't remember the rock and the hard place, but one of the benefits that we talked about here is I love handing my apps over to developers. I got you. Just give me your code. I'll roll out the stacks from underneath you. I'll roll out the VMs. I got the OS upgrades. I got it for you. In this case, Pivotal had to make a risk choice. They did something that was outside of their norm, but because of the vulnerability, they essentially had changed the stem cell in the middle of a series. So this is back when what was called the elastic runtime had a coupling because they didn't have the rolling stem cells of today. They had to make a hard choice of changing between OS versions. Well, guess what? That implementation combined with IP tables, combined with an application starting, combined with hundreds of rules, means an app didn't start. Obviously, working with the support team, I got the opportunity to sit on the phone with what was the DEA engineers at the time, watching them throw code. For those of you that have ever seen me on a keyboard, some people think I'm fast. I got to work with those guys. Long and short of it is, I don't know, probably 45 minutes on the phone one night. Engineer to engineer, I heard someone make a casual comment, and I'm like, oh, that's the issue. Because they were like, these engineers already had a suspicion it was IP tables. They're like, being polite, if you will, in the customer context. I'm like, I think we got enough at the moment. Can I get back to you? Sure enough, long and short of it, from that point in time, we got the patch in, if you will. For the first time manually, if you will, I had a production upgrade in flight. Thankfully, none of our actual production apps were impacted. Was able to pull that in, get that upgraded, and rocket roll through. That's, it's a kind of a combination story. I mean, that one was a pain point, but that one we came out on the good end. There's many other stories. Again, in a maybe more private context, I'll take the gloves off a little bit and share more details. But I can keep going, but I'll pause for the moment. Let those seeds start, and then people can get the questions going.
Good.
Cool. All right, Channing. I've heard your pivotal platform story is a bit different than your fellow panelists as a function of internal circumstances, possibly in a bit of a negative direction. Can you elaborate on your experiences and what you've learned thus far with them?
Yeah, I've already scanned the audience to make sure no one else from Schwab is here. I think I think I'm clear, and I'll make sure that the video never hits the internet too. Okay. So. No, I mean, we have actually heard a lot of stuff that has worked well in other areas, and I keep thinking to myself, man, I wish we did that. Man, I wish we did that. It wasn't about developers first. It was about governance first. There was a gauntlet that you had to go through to onboard to the platform. There was a gauntlet that you had to go through to qualify your applications to be on the platform. One anecdotal story I have, we would develop a Spring Cloud task application that just performs a relatively simple batch process. It takes a couple hours for the job to kick up and finish, and we were able to do all the coding and testing in one sprint. So we're like, yeah, cool, we're doing Agile. And then for the release preparation, we had to fill out an amount of paperwork that took us an additional 2 sprints. And so, 3 sprints later, finally this application made it into production. And that's just one example. If I had to rattle off a list of don'ts, it's, don't try to centralize the control of the application team's behavior on the platform. Let them manage their own behavior on the platform. That's what it's for in the first place. Don't dictate how application teams are going to name their orgs and spaces. It doesn't frickin' matter.
Does work.
Don't build an entire set of centralized tools on top of what's already there and force teams to use that in order for them to be able to get into production. CF push works really well. That's why people use it. You don't have to build an entire framework of automation on top of that and then make everybody fit your model. My team might want to do it extraordinarily differently from another team, and we have probably very good reasons for that. Granted, we operate in a financial services industry, very, very heavily regulated, right? So we do have to do things carefully, and we're handling other people's money. So we have to do things really carefully. But my team knows how to handle that regulatory compliance better than a centralized organization does, because we deal with those regulations all the time. The thing that I've been trying to say to the managers of the platform has always been, what you need to do is allow us to learn how to operate the platform for ourselves, and then let us do it. And that's where we seem to have been butting heads for a period of time now. There is light. There's hope. There's been some organizational change, and there's a possibility that things might actually go in a different direction. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. We've done a lot of cool stuff, and Schwab is a good place to work, just in case, But
This
yeah,
is
I
where
mean,
he spins it.
if I had,
Still positive.
if I was the one making decisions, I would have done it differently.
All right, and closing it off with Carrie. So we've talked about Pivotal Platform and how it can be hard to sell to senior leadership. How did you position Pivotal Platform to be a straight part of your company, and what type of ROI are you observing from the strategic vision?
So the differentiator between OneMagnify and probably a lot of other companies is, with us being in the small to medium-sized business space, we have to be able to directly justify our purchases based on our customer needs. So Andy, our CIO, actually came back from a conference probably in 2015, and he had heard all of the buzz about containers. And sometimes, when high management, senior management goes out to conferences and they come back and you're like, ugh. But it was a fantastic idea. So we were able to look at the Pivotal platform and align it to our corporate goals. And it aligned it was an alignment that made it easy to sell. So the first strategic goal, obviously, for a corporation is growing your revenue, right? So the fact that we were able to consolidate our hardware, we were able to increase our developer efficiency, all of those things were an easy sell. And then the next is operational excellence. And we actually researched a lot on automation, automating both the pipeline for the platform and then automating the pipeline for DevOps, and found that would free up our developers and also create standards and consistent results. So that was another way that we were able to make that sale, because it meant that we weren't going to have the issues and the risks and deviations like that you typically do when you're manually doing things. So, and then one of our really important goals is happy employees. So we have a whole program around that, and we have really low turnover, which means that we are actually doing a really good job at keeping these employees happy. So reducing the dev team's frustration was a huge selling point for us, and we've actually seen a lot of that as we've gone forward with the platform. Like I said, on the platform journey, we're relatively young. We started our dojo in February. We've already got 5 apps in production, and we have a list of probably another 20 more that are lined up pretty much to go in. So we've seen very good results. Another thing that I thought was very important was in my last role before being the platform owner for the Pivotal platform, I was managing a development team. And at OneMagnify, because we're a small company, the development teams, when there's an issue in production, they support that production issue. So we don't have a separate operations team. So our developer productivity was impacted by having to manage issues with infrastructure. When you first launch an application, we were seeing it was taking them weeks. Now they're down to minutes. And then a lot of times at night, I was getting phone calls. My team were getting phone calls at like 3 a.m. Like there's a problem with production, and nobody enjoys that. And then on the weekends, we had the same types of issues. And then we have quarterly patching cycles, which eats away their weekends as well. So we've been able to roll patching, roll changes to applications without impacting our employees' happiness and time with their families, which is really important to me.
Cool. All right. Go ahead.
Add something onto what Kerry mentioned there. One of the things I didn't mention earlier, the benefits we got from like the community-driven like DevOps, was that because they were deploying apps to cloud in a very consistent manner, we had a capability to sort of potentially move developers around based on business need. So, for example, if there was a particular retail initiative that was high priority, we could move developers towards that initiative from another team, because everything is the same. Like they just sit down and it's like they're ready to go. And it was one of those things that we're going through an app modernization initiative as well in parallel to what we're doing from a kind of keep going forward on cloud as well. So when we're doing the modernization, we're looking to minimize the complexity on cloud, because everything then underneath it becomes more simple. So like simplicity is one of the big design characteristics in how we do things. And like, I guess engineers, I was a developer for a long time. Complexity is something that we sometimes have in how we do things, but it's all about shifting that mindset towards simplicity as well.
I just want to agree with one thing that Kerry said. When executives go to conferences and come back, there's a lot of work for managers, right?
Have any of you had any issues with employee retention, either developers or operators, through like this cultural shift?
We haven't. So the teams have responded very positively. And I think it's interesting. So our first application we moved to production. We actually did all of our pipelines first. So there was definitely some frustration from the teams and management that was taking so long. But after we did the first one, and we definitely had issues that first time, it probably took us 15 minutes. The second time, we all got on this Teams meeting, and we were like waiting to push that app to production. And Raji's sitting up in the front row, and Raji and I were sitting there, and our teams were kind of working on it. And then we were kind of like, "Hey guys, when's it actually going to roll?" And they're like, "It rolled like 2 minutes ago," and it was like 8:04. So, and we were supposed to roll at 8, so it took them like less than 2 minutes to roll. So that has made the teams, big believers. So when they saw it happen, immediately they became even more excited and ready to push more to the
So
platform.
I'm going to jump right into the lightning round because we only have a few more minutes to go, and I want to hear the audience. So this is how this works. I am so confident with the vanguards that I challenge you in the audience to ask them a challenging question. And if they can't answer it, I will do 5 push-ups. Okay? Okay? So you ask, and you guys, if you know it, you have to answer it. Don't hold back just to see me work out.
So if anybody wants to ask me what color sky is, I'm saying red.
I'm in trouble. I could do maybe 3. Okay, anyone have any questions? Go. Yes, sir.
So you're a very powerful group of vanguards. Now, how to use your power? Can you name 1 or 2 or 3 top features, top capabilities that you want to add to the platform in, say, next 12 months? Right. And it's good to have answer from
Did everybody hear the question? He said, first of all, that we are very powerful vanguards, and he's absolutely right about that. But he also asked, what are maybe the top 3 features that we would like to see added to the platform?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, answer the question.
Mine's easy.
Hopefully you know it.
When we talk
Questions
to
over
the
here?
API, I want it to be an API that's in front of my foundations, and I want it to then control which foundation it runs on. I want resiliency at one more layer of abstraction.
Yeah.
I'd like an easier interface for managing your clusters within PKS. Something that it is more that you can actually see where you could potentially have issues and fault tolerance, and maybe even recommendations like maybe this is running a little too high with your metrics. So start doing more like predictive responses through the analytics to say, hey, this could be an issue.
Who has a mic on this side? Brett, pass it down to Jürgen.
One thing I would add is if you're running a Kubernetes cluster, you have the declarative approach of describing what you really want. You don't have that if you're on the path layer. You basically script your deployment, you script your service instance creation, all that stuff. What I want to add is that's such a declarative approach, maybe not via the CF API or the CLI, but maybe via some sort of different tooling. Like I want to describe what I want, and I want to have that apply to a foundation.
So at our scale, right? Like for us, I think scale is big, and one of the things, it's like very important to us is like we ask application teams to distribute, right? And we have these 22 foundations that they can take advantage of. But then, they have to go to every single foundation and install their applications, having some of that, like innately available, into the platform. So when you push it, it's automatically distributed, like, all the sites, multi-site management, there's a whole bunch of things, that, we've just been discussing. Happy to add more of that stuff.
So were those acceptable answers?
Okay.
All right, sounds good. We got another question back there. Go for it.
Yep. So how do you think PaaS on Kubernetes will play out?
How do you think PaaS on Kubernetes will play out?
I like to. So the first description I heard from Pivotal when essentially that migration was announced, I deliver the haiku. In that context, I don't care. CF push, keep working. Change the back end out because loosely speaking, I don't care. I happen to care because I run the stuff, but keep the APIs working.
Yeah, I remember one phrase of the keynote, Civ push is sacred, and that's what it is. Civ push is all about simplicity, all about getting your app simply running. And as long as this is still working the same way as it is, obviously I don't care because I'm a member of the platform team, but as a developer I wouldn't care. As you said, here's my source code running on the cloud for me, I don't care how. Basically, one thing I have to add, I'm really keen on getting it done because it's more the standard stuff, you know. You don't have that custom Diego implementation. What I always tell developers, if you go to the internet, just go to Stack Overflow, ask a question, and it would work on our platform. If you ask a question about Diego, it could be a bit hard to get an answer. If you ask a question about Kubernetes, it could be easier. That's what I'm hoping to get.
I absolutely agree, you know, with both the answers, right? Like, end of the day, you know, from a developer standpoint, you know, they should not care about it, right? But again, I think, you know, it's like very early on, and sometimes you just, you know, when you think about like, great, you know, there's the concept of the org and the space here, but then, you know, when you go to like Kubernetes, you know, and again, this is very much, you know, from like a platform engineer kind of standpoint, those are the things that are going to matter, right? Like, great, and today, you know, if you have an org in space, how is that going to translate into Kubernetes? You know, are there going to be namespaces? How are we going to differentiate that? How do you know who's using your platform? You know, and I think there's a lot of similarities, and it just makes sense. You know, that, you know, there's a lot of gravity towards, you know, Kubernetes that is happening, and I think it's a natural evolution, you know, for CF to go in that direction, right?
So at this point, I can't believe it took us this long to get to Kubernetes. Hopefully someone's got a service mesh question ready. So from my perspective, I want to see it. I think now that the VMware Pivotal togetherness is deeper, let's wait and see how they kind of attack this, because I think they're going to, with that partnership and them working closer together, I think it's going to change the way that they're working on it. And the majority of the time, whenever I come to these conferences and I start to hear about Kubernetes, the first question you should always ask someone who's really hardcore Kubernetes is, what do you have in production? Because usually it's just like, we got a lot of cool apps in dev, and nothing's in production with Kubernetes. So I want to see more of that adoption, and then before we start switching and changing everything that we're doing.
I can't believe it's taken us this long for anyone to mention the VMware Pivotal acquisition. So, did that answer your question? Okay, cool. No push-ups. Next question.
Hi, thanks. Kind of a two-part question on the journey. So, some of you are just you know, a few months in. Some of you have been there for a while. In terms of your upskilling of your resources and your technology, in the initial part of the journey, part one, how did you keep your people interested and knowing this is the right thing to do and the right way to go, excited about that journey? And then the second part of that is, how do you keep your stakeholders and your executive convinced of that as well?
Did you guys catch that?
Yeah, I got it. So it's how do we keep our stakeholders on board with what we're doing, which is a big question, and then how do we keep upskilling and keeping the people who are working on the platform engaged, right? So for the engagement, I think I'm one of the weirder groups up here, because everyone was very, thanks, Greg. Everyone's very engineer focused for their teams. We took a bunch of different people from different parts of our organization, brought them together. One of the guys on my team was a DevOps engineer that I hired 3 years ago, and we never actually got to any DevOps until about 16 months ago. I have one guy who came from security, who really didn't like me at that point in time, but I mean, we're okay now. I think the engagement from the engineering level is easy, because it's not mundane anymore. Things change so quickly, and like, you have all these buzzword bingo conversations that you have to have, right? That they also get the opportunity to go out there and try new things. They're not just stuck doing the same thing over and over again. The interesting thing is, nobody likes the 3 a.m. patch parties up here for some reason. I always really enjoyed that team building. But I'm kidding. We usually had broken something, it wasn't patching. But taking that away, and taking away conversations around patching, where you're just taking stem cells and getting them up into production, and no one knows it actually happened. There's not a big hurrah about that. People get pumped up about that, and they want to do more of that and automate more and kind of take a lot of their work that they don't want to do and work on other cool things that makes the platform better. From the stakeholders, it's basically show and prove. We can talk about this because it's done. We just had a huge launch from Adidas. It was the Yeezy brand. They came to us a few weeks before. We would never have been able to do it in our old way. It just would not be possible. We would need months to get the hardware in place, rack and stack, wire, all of that stuff, just for the wave of traffic we were going to get, because it was close to 10x is what we were thinking of our normal Cyber Monday, Cyber Tuesday, however long it goes now. But doing it this way and showing and proving that you can actually move to what your business wants now, that keeps them engaged. You put out a lot of metrics, and I think that was one of the biggest things that came out. Like, the first thing to get them on board is to show, like, we're going to save you this money and we're going to move faster for you, so there's flexibility.
Dennis. Oh, Jürgen, then Dennis.
Sorry, just a quick
cool.
thought on that. My answer would be communicate as much as you can and be as transparent as you can. Get your developers or whatever you have on your journey engaged and get them to build the platform together with them. That keeps them engaged in any case.
Just to add, because we have to go down the line. So how do you ensure for us, right? Like it's very important to understand what are you trying to accomplish and understand the language of your executives, right? For us, when we started this journey, it was more about resiliency, right? Was our goal. To other companies, it might be time to market something faster, right? So it's important to understand that. And then, like what Jürgen said, we took the biggest monolith that we had, right? And we had to build that developer partnership, right? And it was, it's difficult and it takes time, right? But once you get that momentum going, and when somebody, one of the developer teams who has had seen success on the platform, gets up on an all hands and tells their story of how amazing this is, naturally other people are I want to do that, right? Yep.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot of that in terms of getting testimonials from a success perspective. If you're increasing daily deploys to production from 1 to 17, which we saw in just a couple of months. For me, in terms of exec influence, it's automating it. Because I'm sure everyone in this room has been in a situation where an exec goes, hey, we need an update on this. Can you get something together for tomorrow? And we're scrambling with a PowerPoint slide. And then we put the PowerPoint, we present or whatever. It's very reactive in terms of how you're demonstrating the value. So what we've started to do in the last couple of months is embed metrics in all of the services and then leverage our design team to create the personas. So the persona of our financial exec versus a business exec is different. And how do you use the baseline technology metrics and translate them into something that's consumable for the personas themselves? So that's on the second part. I want to put in a lightning one as well before I forget it. One of the biggest passions I have is on the developer itself. And for me, it's working with the developers to understand the difference between a feature and a philosophy. Okay, so a feature is something that delivers value to the customer. A philosophy is one of 1 million ways of implementing said feature. And what we've seen in the past, and I've seen this at previous companies, is that philosophies complicate what you have and you deliver to your customers. If you always go for complication and huge amount of philosophies on your platform or product, then you're going to get in trouble because they're not delivering value in any way. The idea is to try and get philosophies to define what the feature should be and just get that mindset sort of shift again going with the difference between features and philosophies.
I've got a question. How do you govern that?
Govern it with...
Whether features are being contributed versus philosophy.
Yeah, so we do full-blown agile across the company, right? And we do the upfront planning, and then the features are scored. And essentially, one of the biggest ways you govern as well is if you've no visibility, you can't govern, right? Now, we have to get that right balance as well in terms of if you have the Avengers, I'm going to use that more often now. If you have the Avengers, they get together from a community perspective and help us sort of help define what the governance philosophies should be, I would say. And we're kind of bringing that together now to ensure. But if you have data and then you have the right level of governance in key areas, you kind of test out the governance model as well, because governance, what Chang mentioned a while ago about heavy regulated components of what we do, but then there's stuff that's not as needed from a government. You don't need as much governance in other areas. So adapt your governance approach as well based on the businesses.
And to that, there's like one question you can really ask. What are you trying to solve? I mean, there's a lot of people who just want to do cool stuff, and that's awesome, like on the side. But when you don't want to get backed into dates, but if you're going to do something, it can't just be because we want to do something and test it out. We have to deliver something to continue to do the philosophy stuff.
One thing I would add, you can achieve a lot of governance if you make the way you want developers to develop their software as easy as possible. If you create a safe surrounding, a safe sandbox if you want, and let the developers play or develop in the sandbox, you can achieve a lot of governance, and you do not have to have that one thing that agrees on all these things, but you can achieve it by simply creating that safe garden.
And far away from production.
I think so, because the simple, boring answer from the metrics. I mean, what you do is you get hundreds to thousands or more of applications successfully delivered, which is reality. The more fun way I like to look at it is you look at where the passions are. What are people complaining about? Like in the resiliency space, are you complaining about stuff that gets you to the 4th or 5th 9, or are you trying to get just to 99? That helps you through the journey. And then, honestly, how do you keep the stakeholders' attention? At the end of the day, it's run cost, and it competes.
The other thing I would say is that, specific to the governance question, what I did is I included everybody up front, right? So I brought in the security team and got them involved and made them a stakeholder in our platform so that they were involved right from day one, from the inception meeting, so that they knew what we were doing and they were able to figure out how we would make this work for the developers and how we could enable the developers, and really made part of their job or on the team to be how do we get the most amount of developer enablement and still have security or governance for processes.
So did they answer your question okay? Absolutely. Okay, cool. And then 2-question guy? Did they answer your question all right?
I'd like to say yes.
All you have to say is no.
Yeah.
And Brian, we have a question over here.
Okay, shoot, go.
Sure. So I'm wondering on the operation side, so like how do you keep your platform environment up to date with the current Pivotal like past release or PKS release? And what is the percentage of your teams spend on like support versus upgrade?
Do I got to start pushing? Or? No. Did you guys hear the question?
I sort of did.
Here, I'll attempt to paraphrase. So, hopefully, yeah. So this might couple of words, but so kind of the original question was, how do you keep up to date? How do you get your actual application teams to do that? And then I just rephrased the question. And what was the second part? I already forgot.
So the first part is actually how your platform team keep up with the changes of the like.
What percentage of
So
I guess my quick answer to that's easy. First, you assemble the team, you get them knowledgeable, you get them understand a bit of it. You kick the tires, light the fires, and you do it. It comes down to is I can't tell you how many times I've had review meetings, if you will. We just need to go faster. You just need to go faster. You get the confidence, you understand the risks, you make your decisions and go faster. I don't even know how, from a run cost perspective, I'm on a team of 8. And I don't know, we kind of kick it. So yeah, whatever that works out in human cost.
I would add we are a team of 4 guys who do the really Bosch Elastic Cloud Platform installation thing, and about 6 persons who do the application layer. And what I want to do is, or what we do is, if you had an issue with the platform, a customer is complaining about, I need that feature or that feature, you have to question each issue. How could it be avoided? Could it be avoided by adding more documentation, by more automation, by more self-service? And if it happens the 3rd time in a row, you have to automate it. And that's why we achieve these flexibility, this freedom, these time to think about new features. We don't want to do customer requests, we automate them. Or we think of every customer request as a chance to get it automated.
So I think the answer is actually painfully, right? Because when you become really big, right? There is automation, and there's a whole bunch of automation that you can do, but you have so many, like when you hit apply changes, right? And to the time it gets over, I kind of tell it's like the Golden Gate Bridge, right? Like by the time you reach the end, Pivotal's next release is out, right? And you still have to go through that cycle. Right, and again, like if you look at the open source, piece of it, that like releases happen, so often, right? So yeah, automating, pushing it, as more times than not, right, is what you want to do. But I think it's also engaging, with your developer community to say that, like, great, you have n number of sites, right? Let's not stick to the old model of like, hey, I have an active site and a DR site. No, that model doesn't work, right? So you want to build those relationships with people and with the app teams to say, like, distribute, so that, if we are doing an upgrade in a particular site and you're expecting to have turbulence, and if you don't want to be there, if your app has a proper health check, yeah, you will not, it'll be seamless, for you, right? And again, that's, I think the biggest part is, as much as you can put automation in place, it is something that, you have to keep doing often enough, but then how do you ensure that you build that trust with your app dev teams to say that you can expect turbulence, but things are going to be okay?
Really quickly.
Wait, there's one back there and
yeah.
finish with
So
this guy.
just really quickly, keep your platforms and the applications variability as simple as possible. Makes your operations life much easier. The role of SRE as a mindset plus embedded SRE sort of evangelist in the business to help complement that. And the last thing is partner roadmap alignment. Like, we're really trying to, we're doing this, and we're actively doing this to ensure that we're aligning to partner roadmaps, that we're not doing stuff that would cause operations issues down the road based on an evolving platform, for example, that's provided by a partner. So always keeping kind of that connectivity with the roadmaps, because I don't want my folks working on stuff that a partner is going to have out of the box.
Go ahead.
Can you please describe the Pivotal Vanguard mission?
Oh man, wait. So
and by the way, my name's Andy.
I'll take that one. So our goal is twofold. Okay, we are building a community of customers that can not only give Pivotal feedback on our products, but also learn from one another. It's about building an enterprise customer community. So it's helping Pivotal. But in addition, these are folks that in another world may have been competing with one another. But within the community, we're all on the same team. We share ideas with one another. There's no walls. And that's a beautiful concept when we're all going through the same problem, right? So it's about building a customer advocacy community where we could learn from one another, share ideas, share bug fixes, share manuals, links, where we can help each other succeed. Because, I mean, we have some of the most passionate customers in the industry. Why not put them together and build and work towards the same problem together? So, was that an acceptable answer? You put me on the spot. Oh, wait, they were.
Brian,
yeah.
I think we have
okay,
time.
Yeah, you guys
Be
bailed
awesome.
me out.
Brian, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
We're right up on it.
All right, I'll do 5. I'll do 5.
I'll ask my question while you're doing push-ups.
All right. I can't do anymore. So
Apply changes failed. You have to repeat.
I got a softball. What's your number one favorite thing about Cloud Foundry?
Oh, perfect. What's your number one favorite thing about Cloud Foundry?
The socks.
I would say for me, it's the teamwork, So getting the platform operators, which are traditionally infrastructure, and the development teams working together, which I know is very cheesy, but I love people, and I love when people get along and work well together.
That's nice.
Speedy delivery, to quote Mr. McFeely.
I've been a part of what we've always renamed as Team Fun Times as the runtime support team, which is Cloud Foundry.
I'm based in Ireland, and I was in EMC when the Pivotal thing kicked off. And I've always noticed that as the product's evolved, it's always taken that customer kind of feedback very well over the years. And that's been a very reassuring thing to me, that it keeps evolving with the needs of customers.
I think it's just developer experience. It's amazing to see the impact. Organizations who were not on PaaS, and the impact like companies have and how they evolve. I think that's absolutely the best thing.
There are really so many things that are really great about this product, about this community. One thing I was supposed to say the CF push experience, but you always said it's that developer experience. Yeah, I would say you should visit the Cloud Foundry Summit and get the energy in that community and the passion in that community of deep people developing that platform. And that's the most exciting thing about Cloud Foundry.
I think mine would be we basically were able to kill ITIL with it. We got we got rid of CAB, we got rid of change management. We just automated it, and everybody seems to be just as happy. Otto, did you have something for us?
No, we got to go. They're
okay.
giving us 1 minute. I will close by saying this. I've made some amazing friends. Thank you very much for coming.